Good morning to you all. I'm Vladimir, President of the Mexico City chapter, and today we'll continue with part 2 of our first regional virtual series that we've organized for you, ELT Alternatives, Enriching Your Career Beyond the Classroom. Today we'll have 2 international speakers from Pearson, our sponsor, explaining how to personalize content for your classes and discussing why a paradigm shift is a must in today's education. Also, with us today, there'll be 2 experienced and well-known. We're going to answer some questions related to teacher training and management. As with last week's sessions, we expect you to participate during these ones by posting your questions in the chat box, either on our YouTube channels or our Facebook fan page. If you free to do it there in our social media. Finally, we invite you to share this with your friends and colleagues so they can watch the sessions as well. And make sure to keep an active role because professional development is about doing something and not just being a mere spectator. Welcome, and let's begin with our first interview for this morning.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Elias, and I'm going to be your host for this first interview. Thank you very much for joining us today. The first person we're going to interview today, his name is Andres. Please let me introduce him to you. Andres has been involved in ELT for over 18 years and has taught in different contexts, including business English and exam preparation. He holds the Cambridge Assessment English Delta modules, all 3, and is a CELTA trainer. He is interested in teacher education and improving the teaching of phonology. He is currently pursuing an MA program with NAL and the University of Chichester with specialization in academic management and trainer development. Good morning, Andres. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you, Elias.
I'm very glad to see you here, and thank you for joining us and making a spot in your busy schedule to answer some of our questions.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to explain you how this interview is going to go. So first, we're going to talk about your past, maybe your road towards becoming a teacher trainer. Then we're going to talk about your present qualities as a teacher trainer and the qualifications you've been developing or you developed or are planning on developing. And then we're going to talk about more in terms of original content or things that you have created throughout your career that have made a significant spot or have made a good enough spot in your heart, let's say, in professional matters. And then at the very end, we're going to take some questions from the audience. Okay?
Excellent.
Are you ready?
Sounds good. Ready.
Great. So let's begin with the first question, Andres. Tell me, when did you decide to become a language teacher and why?
Good question.
Yes.
It was not my decision. I think it's common in many teachers that it was not my decision. It was kind of thrust upon me quite literally.
Really?
I was studying at a language school, and I had just taken a placement test, so they knew that my English was quite okay. And basically, just one teacher was absent. I think he had an accident or something, and the coordinator was like walking around kind of panicking, and then she saw me and it was like, you, and she gave me like a tape recorder with books. It was like there, and so literally thrust upon me. I was like, okay, there's your class, go and teach it. And I was like, I mean, it wasn't even a question, it was just like, okay, go and do it. I was obviously very nervous.
Like divine intervention, basically. You didn't even have a voice on it. You just said, "Okay, I'm doing it," and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't even ask. She
Wow.
was like, "There's your class. Go and teach it in 5 minutes," or I don't know, something like that. Um, Later on, I found out that that was her style. That she would spot talent or something, and she would do that to other people as well. Like go and do it.
Wow.
But the experience was very enriching. I really liked the lesson. I just pretty much did what my teachers had done. I kind of remembered like the lesson. I had no formal training, so I just jumped into the class. But at the end, 2 or 3 of them stayed behind and started asking me questions like, what can you recommend so that I learn more verbs, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, oh, okay, I must have done a good job. But then she called me back into her office like, I was like, ooh, probably it was not that good.
You see, like, oh my God, I'm in trouble, right? Like, shit, I didn't do a good job. Maybe. Okay. And what happened?
But then she was like, no, I mean, learners were very happy with you, and they would like to have you as a teacher in the following course. I was like, oh, okay.
Wow. Okay.
Let's do that. I didn't stay unprepared for long. I mean, it was just like 2 or 3 months before I joined my first teacher training course. But it was not really like I want to. It was literally thrust upon me. Very, very fun.
And then after this first experience, you fell in love, I guess, or you really liked it, I guess.
I definitely liked it. Yeah, I quite liked it. It was a very interesting experience.
And in this particular case, your first students were adults, young learners, very young learners. What happened there?
They were adults. It was like one of the largest groups at the time. It was like 15 learners. We even had to ask, like, to bring chairs in. So it was my first class, completely unprepared. And then some student just knocked the door and was like, "Can I come in?" I was like, "There's absolutely no space. Can you go and steal chairs from somewhere else?" So it was quite something.
So after this first experience, you just said that in the following months you began your professional development stage, right? What was your first course?
It was a teacher training course, a summer intensive teacher training course. So let's say I started around April, May, something like that, and the summer course was in July. So again, it was. I mean, I knew that these courses existed, but I didn't know that they were about to start. So I took the bus on Insurgentes, got off in a school, and just asked about the training course. I was accepted, and they said, "Good, you start on Monday." And I'm like, "Fine." And that was my first teacher training course.
And this teacher training course was, I guess, developed by that school, I guess, right? Okay, and then how many months passed until you did your first internationally acknowledged teacher training course? Like maybe a CELTA or a TKT or one of those?
Yeah. About 2 years, 2 or 3 years. I don't remember exactly, but about 2 years after that. I did my research online and I found out that there was the option of CELTA. I checked different schools in Europe, and the one I chose was Barcelona because. Well, first of all, because they spoke Spanish.
You would feel more comfortable. I understand. Yeah.
The other options were Ireland, and I think it was the Ukraine. So I was like, I don't speak Russian. I don't read that alphabet. So
and too cold, right? Like, no, it's too cold. Okay.
And I don't remember why I didn't go to Ireland. But anyway, in the end, I applied, for a place in Barcelona, and it was a very interesting experience. I mean, right now we're online, everybody's doing it online, but I mean, back then I didn't even know that Skype existed. So I had an interview with a trainer over Skype. And I was accepted, and I took the 1 month intensive course in October.
I understand. I have to ask, back in the day, CELTA was not available here in Mexico, and that's why you decided to go on to do it in Europe? Or
as far as I remember, that was the case. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm guessing that you had the opportunity of teaching mixed classrooms in terms of nationality, in terms of levels, I guess. What was your experience back in Spain? What can you tell us about it?
I like that teacher training course quite a bit because it was kind of knowing the whys of things. My first teacher training course was very imitational, like do this. Like the trainer would demonstrate the lesson. These are the steps, and this is what I would like you to do. But you would never really go deeper into the why. These are the steps. This is the sequence that you should follow. And the feedback I got from CELTA was that it was. Literally, that was the question the trainers asked. What did you do? And you were like, why did you do it? And I was like,
that's a very good question, right? Okay, yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, all right. Yeah, we taught two different levels, two different groups of adults. The first one was a very large one. They were basic learners. And it was a very large room, like an auditorium-sized room.
Wow.
The other one was in our classroom, so it was a little bit smaller. The experience was also enriching because all the other candidates were L1 users except for a girl from Holland and me. All the others were either American or Brit. So it was quite a challenge because the assignments would be returned if they had like one single mistake. Like,
wow. Okay.
It was like this word. No, do it again.
Sorry. Bye. Okay. And if I remember correctly, but good. If I remember correctly, in most cases, whenever you're submitting one of your essays for CELTA, you only get one opportunity to redo it, right?
The calendar was like, let's say the assignments would be set on a Thursday, Friday, something like that, and I would write them on Sunday, I think. No, well, I had one day off. I did have like one day of the weekend off. The other day was devoted fully to
it was
assignments.
Off, right? Because
I really did have it off. I didn't do much. I mean, a lot of my classmates were like, researching, but since I already had experience, I just used it for the assignments. Then submission on Monday. Probably resubmission by Thursday or something. All of them were resubmissions. It was like, there's a mistake, blah, do it again. But I mean, it felt good. Like you had the opportunity to do it better rather than getting like a lower grade, since there's just like pass or resubmission. It's not like getting a 7 or an 8. I mean, I think if you have the opportunity to do it better, you should take it. And I always took it like very positively. I mean, you kind of knew that you were going to resubmit, but anyway, it was like, well, do tell me that.
It's like, I'm just here to learn. Let's do it. Okay.
Most definitely, yes.
And so you did your CELTA with 2 years of experience as a teacher. And then what happened?
And then
what was the next step? Yeah. Up the ladder.
I mean, professionally, I just came back to Mexico. And probably with less than a year afterwards, I was invited to become a teacher trainer where I was working. Apparently, there was a vacancy in one of the branches, not where I was working exactly, but in another branch. And then the supervisor just talked to me. And again, it was offered like, would you like to be a teacher trainer? And I was like, yes. I mean, my teacher trainers have been amazing people, and I would like to do that. I remember I started on Valentine's Day. It was February 14th for some reason.
Yeah.
And just before joining the course as a teacher trainer, I was invited to like the graduation exams, like the final exams of the previous generation, just to kind of set the standard. But that was it, really. It was not like, this is how the course is done. They just gave me a huge binder, like, read it, familiarize yourself, and you start on Monday.
Okay.
But yeah, then I just started on this day, February 14th.
And you just mentioned that you were a bit struck by, or you had an everlasting impression by the people who trained you in Spain, I'm guessing, and in other different courses. Who would you say left the biggest and most positive impression on you? Who would you say is, or was, well, I guess it still is, your role model?
I don't know if I would call them role models.
Okay.
I don't necessarily want to be exactly like them, but definitely inspiring. Well, in the 3 trainers I had in my first teacher training course were really, really good. One of them had all the experience in the world. She was a very short woman and well, relatively elderly. But she,
Yeah.
she just delivered the most amazing demos. She had like plastic dishes and cups and blah, and it was like a party context and with nothing. And then the most amazing thing for me actually was that she just walked out of the classroom and threw it all away to the rubbish bin. I was like, no,
And you were like, what?
that's precious.
No.
That's an amazing
Yeah.
class. I just want to. And she was like, yeah, whatever. It's just something I did. The second one was Helen Joy. She was Brit. She was doing her Delta at the time, but she was also very, very friendly and very efficient. And I don't know, her lessons were very good. Finally, Pilar Aramayo was also a trainer at the time there. What struck me from her was that she was Mexican and young. She was probably 27 at the time.
Wow.
Around.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
So her English was really good. Her presence was amazing. She would wear like this well-cut suit. She was also very accessible, and I think if you mention somebody as a role model, I think it would be her, because I was young as well, and I was Mexican as well. I am Mexican still, of course, and it was like, wow, it's possible. You can be a very good teacher trainer being young and Mexican. From Barcelona, yes, his name is Gerard McLaughlin. He's currently, I think, the president of, what's the name of like Spain TESOL, or it's Mextesol, but there.
But yeah.
He was also very chill. All the time was relaxed. Like when you would feel bad after a teaching practice that didn't go quite as planned, like, oh my God, that was just terrible. He would just smile at you and say, like, sit down, think about it, but you did it. So I take that from him. He was very relaxed. Doesn't mean that he was lenient in any way, but he just made you feel at ease. Like it's a normal part of the process.
You're learning, right? That's basically what's going to happen. It's okay to make mistakes, right?
I mean, he always reacted like it's normal. I mean, it's part of your process. And more recently, my Delta trainers, they were amazing, both of them. They made like a very good pair. The first one was Jamie King. I mean, he just knows everything about everything. He's been training all over the world, quite literally. He's a freelancer. He really just does
travels all around the world. Yeah.
But everything, every single context you would give him, he said, "Yeah, I've done it. I know it." And the other one was Jane Richbill, and she was also incredibly nice. Like both of them were very approachable with trainees. So I think I take that from them. That they were not like I'm the trainer and keep your distance. It was a very friendly manner and
approachable.
And very approachable, very professional as well. It was not that they were like my friends or anything, but very, very, very professional. And their synergies were that he knew like everything regarding theory, and she would put it into practice. She's like the kind of hold my beer trainer, like when you say like that's impossible, that will never work in my context, and she would just hold my beer, stand up, and just demonstrate it there in the classroom right then and there. It's like, oh, you say it doesn't work. Here it goes.
It's working. It's working. Oh, wow.
And that was amazing. I was like, whoa. So, yeah, I think I take a little bit from everyone. And I think I've been very lucky in terms of who I've trained with in my career.
Okay. Thank you. And going back a bit to your timeline in terms of your professional development, after CELTA, you were given this opportunity to start your teacher training path, let's call it like that. And then how many years, how many months did it took you in order for you to start your Delta or your higher qualifications?
Unfortunately, it was a long time. And I say unfortunately because I think, I was accepted to a Delta course back in 2008, but I didn't have the money. I mean, they were very polite. And it's like, unfortunately, we haven't received your payment. And I was like, unfortunately, I haven't been able to save up all the money. Because it's not only the cost of the course, but actually living in Europe for 2 months, it's quite expensive.
Yeah, I hear you.
So I was like, I'm sorry, I don't really have the money, but they did like my application. I mean, I completed the whole application process, and I thought I was going to be able to make it, but I didn't. So what I did in the meantime was stay in Mexico. I trained in another institution as well, which had like this paired trainers. Every course needed another trainer, whereas where I started, I was more on my own. And this was a very enriching experience because I worked with pretty much everybody. And we used to work very closely together. I would even go to their homes, or we planned the course quite intensively and closely together, and obviously free of charge. I mean, we wouldn't charge for those hours. We wouldn't even think of like, okay, this is my time. It was like, well, it's for the benefit of the course, of the trainees, and for ourselves as well.
So in this case, you would have a senior figure and not so senior figure, and as you just said before, they would complement each other, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I was obviously the newbie. I was young, and I was less experienced than they were. So I would just go like, whatever you want to do, I'll just follow you. I mean, I'm learning, so it's fine. It eventually became some sort of like negotiation, and finally it was just like, I don't really mind any sessions. I mean, at the beginning you would have your favorites, like, oh, I will do reading, I love that one, or this is my favorite. Or you assume that you're pretty good at this one, but I think that you should develop integrally or wholly. So it's not really like one session is your favorite. You should be able to deliver any session in a training course and do it well. So eventually, after working with all of these trainers, I was like, I really don't mind. I'll do any sessions. I do have my favorites, but it's not that I would get mad if I don't get to do them. So it was very enriching because everybody was different, and trying to get these two personalities to work together was challenging, but was very beneficial. Another thing I did was I studied a degree in linguistics here in Mexico, and then finally I was like, no, I really want to do this Delta. This was kind of a thing I always wanted to do. I finally saved up enough money, and I was going to do it in Italy.
And you said, let's go for it.
Yeah, no, the offer came to me. So I think that's the story of my life for everybody who's watching, is like it was offered. But I did have the money. I mean, believe me, this time I was ready to pay for plane tickets and everything. And the institution I was working for at the moment said, okay, we want to offer you Delta. What do you think? And I was like, yes. Definitely. I mean, and if you don't give it to me now, I'm leaving for a couple of months, and I'm going to do it this year. I'm super ready. I have everything. But it was it was cheaper. It was easier to have them come here. I didn't know the trainers. I didn't know this, even though they sent us their biodata and everything. But it turned out that they were really among the best. I mean, Jane is based in Argentina, I think, and she has a very good reputation for these courses, and Jamie did as well. So this was 2015 or 16, I think. But I'd done my module 1 before. I prepared for that myself, and I just paid for the exam. So I did my module 1 before in 2014. Then finally module 2, which is the most expensive and probably the most demanding.
Yeah.
It was a life-changing experience. Life-changing because nobody had pushed me there. Yeah, sorry.
No. Sorry to interrupt. I was just wondering, you mentioned you studied linguistics. Would you say this was very helpful while doing Delta? Everything you learned from studying linguistics helped you in any way? Or did it complement in some way your experience with Delta?
Yes. It made language analysis much easier because I had a lot more practice. I mean, and practice with languages that are not Spanish. I mean, we worked with indigenous languages, so it was quite a challenge.
Okay, nice.
So we needed to analyze languages that probably hadn't been analyzed before, or not to that level or to that depth. So I had much more ease in language analysis, but I wouldn't say it helped me in terms of teaching. I mean, let's say preparing the language part of the lesson plan, fine. I was much more confident. I knew what I was doing, but teaching, not really, because teaching at this level and by these trainers, it was a very different experience. I was shown that I had been doing things not quite right, if I'm allowed to say that.
Of course you are. Don't worry.
Because it was, we had like some sort of diagnostic observation. So at the end of this observation, I was very happy with myself. I was like, yeah, everything went according to plan. It was a very good lesson. And then my trainer just looked at me like, no, you were doing this and not this. And I was like, but what do you mean?
You were like, oh.
No, I was very, very confrontative with her. I was like, but what do you mean? It was amazing. It was a very good lesson. She was like, no. And I was like, well, but tell me now. She was like, well, no, there will be an input session later in the course where you will find out what I mean. Sure enough, I did. But at that time I was like, I don't know what she means. Basically it was like seriously skill developmental lessons, like the lessons that do make a difference, where the teacher does make a difference. It's not just the book or anything. Like, you in the classroom make a difference. The fact that it's you, Elias, or it's me or whatever, delivering a lesson at that level, it's impactful. I mean, it has to be.
Of course. So for you and for the students, right?
Definitely, yeah.
And now that we're talking about Delta, could you share with us a memorable experience throughout the course? Because I know that each and every module by itself is a memorable experience, right? Like sitting in module 1 and sitting the test, it's not something that everyone can do like on an everyday basis, right? You need a lot of studying. And then, as you said, module 2, it's very intensive. And module 3, it's basically the culmination of these other 2 modules, which it could take a lot of thoughtful process, right? And analysis to oneself and to your practice as a teacher. So if you could share with us one, but if you want to share more memorable experience throughout your journey while doing Delta, well, that would be amazing.
Module 1 memorable. Basically, I just remember the last task where I had to give a balanced view of PPP. It was like points for it and points against it. I just hated it because I hated PPP at the time. I was like, I'm fed up with it. I don't think there's any positives. But that's what this course makes you think, like in a more balanced way. It's like everything has pros and cons, and you have to be very aware of that. There's no one method that actually works for everybody in every context, in every teaching situation, and that's very valuable for you as a trainer. It's like, would you recommend this one? Well, it depends on your teaching context. It depends who you are as a teacher and who your learners are. Then this might work and this might not work. So I'm very thankful to Delta for that, because this test was very challenging at the moment. Again, I was not very happy about it, but then I was like, definitely, I need to have a more global vision of everything, not just say like, task-based is absolutely fantastic. Well, it is good, but it also has its negatives as everything else. From Delta Module 2, probably the third LSA, the third lesson, I had to do research on what a paragraph was, and I was surprised that I couldn't find an agreed definition. There was no like, this is a paragraph. They did have different versions, and I ended up going with a kind of hamburger metaphor. It has like 2 buns and something in between and blah. And I was like, okay, I'll use that one. And the lesson worked really well. I mean, the learners were very happy writing good paragraphs, because at the beginning of the lesson they couldn't write a thing, and then here was like, it has a topic sentence, it has these details, it's this and that and da. And I felt really good about it. I was like, okay, it's something quite simple that everybody has taught in their lives. Like, I'm going to teach students how to write a paragraph, and we know the structure, but it was not that simple, and it was very, very challenging to teach this one. But I was very happy with the results. And also with the kind of feedback, the feedback immediately, the trainer was like, all right, first question, was your lesson successful and why? Okay, I'm just recovering, I just taught the lesson 5 seconds ago. Yeah. But all right, I would say yes, because my objectives were this, I saw this in class, etc. And they were like, good, well done. I was like, yes. Like, of course, the lesson was successful. I worked hard for it, and the results paid off there. And Delta Module 3, well, that was. I didn't think it was going to be that challenging, but it was very, very challenging.
Why was it that challenging for you? I mean, we all had our expectations of what Delta Module 3 is going to be, but what did you find so challenging about it?
at the moment, my training manager and my supervisor, I mean, he was my line manager and my supervisor for Delta. So it was quite challenging because I was working under him. So, it's like if my work is not good enough, the consequences are not just failing the module, it could be something else.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it at that. But he showed me, like, again, you have to have a very integral vision of things. So writing the introduction about monolingual classes was like, okay, make sure you mention these positives, but also these other controversial points, and then add your vision. So that was incredibly challenging because I had to read, like, I don't know, 25 sources for an introduction that was half a page. Or, it was like, seriously? And I'm like, yeah, but then you say, like, okay, these team of people, they agree with this vision. These team of people, they agree with this other vision that sort of opposes this one. And then what is your vision? What this work wants to know. It's like, and after reading all this, where do you stand and why? Do you stand with one, with the other, somewhere in between? That was very beneficial for me. When I do research now, it's like I read things that agree with what I want to agree and things that disagree, not just like, okay, all these support what I'm saying, all these don't support what I'm saying. And I think they have valid points. Nevertheless, I still agree with that. And the second point was really designing the course. It was a regular English course with all its elements being coherent, like the content, recycling, assessment, everything there, and putting it very, very clearly for the reader. It paid off. I mean, I did get an enhanced grade. I'm sorry to say that, but I did get an enhanced grade there. So I was very happy when I got it. I didn't follow like everybody's conventions. Everybody was suggesting using arrows and other things that I didn't want to use to connect to the parts of the syllabus. I was like, I think it's very clear if you read it like this, and I'm going to color code it, but I'm not really going to follow what everyone else is doing. So that would be the last thing, that I felt very proud that I followed my way of doing things after doing this research, and it paid off.
So basically, in module 3, you followed your own instincts, right? You developed your own qualities in order for you to have a successful grade. And I'm saying this because I want to ask you the following. In your opinion, what are the main qualities for a trainer? I understand that, for example, in your case, you're very creative, and it seems like you like to think outside of the box. Would you say that's one quality that every trainer needs? And of course, I think there's more. What would you say these other qualities would?
That's a good question. I would say that as a quality, you need to be very flexible and very adaptable. So it's not really imposing what you think is right, but finding out about your training context. So who are the trainees?
Your student needs, basically.
But in terms of training now, so
training,
it's mirroring that. So are they teachers without experience, with experience? Who do they teach? What are their needs in terms of training? Why are they here in this course? Sometimes, it may not have been their decision. So they've been sent there by their superiors, or, this is relatively common also in government programs. They are just sent there. And again, this affects how you're going to deliver your training session, because you may need to create more engagement with the content for people who are probably reluctant to be there. You need to grade the content to the appropriate level. If it's pre-service, it's like, this is here. If it's in-service, exploit your participants' experience. They do know, and they are the experts in their own context. I mean, pretend that you know more about their context. They've been teaching there for ever.
A while,
exploit that and then make it better. So you know this, but I'm going to help you do it better, give you more direction, or give you some more theory, some more input, etc. So it's flexibility. It's being very flexible. You cannot walk in with a ready-made lesson and expect it to work everywhere. Even if it's your favorite lesson and you work very hard, it's like no, it needs to be tailored to your audience, to your participants' needs. And that goes back to Delta and to what it helped me achieve. It was like this 360 vision. I must stress that again. It's like PPP may be very, very beneficial for certain type of teachers in a certain context, if in a certain level. And then I'm going to train them how to do that really well. But for other teachers, probably something more learner-centered, more constructivist, more etc. is beneficial, but you need to gauge those. So it's probably being aware of your trainees' needs, being flexible.
Okay.
And
Andres,
being
can you hear me? Oh, yeah. Sorry.
yeah, we're back.
Yeah, we're back. You were saying, sorry.
I was just saying, like, being flexible, adapting to the needs, and really doing your research solidly, reading for and against what you're finding out.
Of course. Now, you have had experience as a teacher trainer both before Delta and after Delta, right? And as you just said, Delta was a very meaningful experience for you, and I think for every trainer around the world. My question would be, what would you say are the most challenging aspects for trainers who are on their way of doing Delta? Like they are maybe beginning, or for some reasons they haven't been able to do it. What were your challenges then? And after Delta, what would be the challenges of becoming a trainer?
I would say, like before, as I told you, I worked together with the other trainer, but there wasn't a formal scheme to make us better trainers, reflect as to how you plan your input sessions, what the contents are, what the frameworks are, because then you go like, what do I do? Like I use like a text-based, a task-based, or something. It's like, well, it's not an English lesson, it's not a language lesson, it's a training lesson. So you need to sequence it and write your lesson plan in a logical way, but also thinking about like, what are the stage names, why am I structuring the session like this? So I think that was my challenge before Delta, because I didn't have this formal training or in terms of how to design training sessions. Probably also a little bit more in terms of feedback. I mean, we didn't used to have like a complete cycle of observation, like discussing the lesson beforehand with the trainee, observing the lesson, and then having a post-observation conference. And now that's something that I normally need to include in every teacher training I give that has a practical component. Last year at the national convention, I gave a talk about that in Querétaro, and people seem to be very interested in that one. I mean, I put myself on the line there because I showed a video of me doing it. I was like, okay, I'm not just going to tell you that some other people do it. It's like,
you were
this
like,
is me.
This is how you do it. Yeah, this is it. Come on.
This is me doing it pre-session. Obviously the observation was reduced. I just showed myself there in the back of the room or something, and this is the post observation conference, and this is the sequence. And it was obviously very challenging, to show yourself there. It's like, all right, this is how it's done. But I got a very positive reaction from them, and I think I got that from Delta Module 2, but also later on in designing the Delta Module 3, and then training as a CELTA trainer. This was like a key ingredient that I felt was missing in my previous training experiences. The previous training experiences tended to be more evaluative in the sense of the observation. It was like, okay, you plan your lesson, I'll come and observe you, and then I'll give you feedback. But there was no accompaniment in the process of like designing and planning the session before actually it was taught. So I think that affected quite a lot the feedback that I gave and the reaction that the observed teacher got, because he was probably very defensive. He was like, "We worked very hard for this lesson, and yet you come and tell me that there are these areas of improvement, and yet you didn't really accompany me here." Whereas nowadays, I think this is one thing I try to incorporate in all my training sessions. Like, let's talk about your lesson before. Where does your thinking come from? Remember your input lessons. Remember the sequencing we've done. plan your lesson. I'll help you. Then I'll observe that lesson, and then we'll come back to this pre-observation discussion in terms of points that probably the observed teacher wanted to focus on. Like, could you please observe my feedback or my instructions or my something that they want me to observe? That's also very valuable because you get some more investment and buy-in into the observation. And even if you in the end give them some sort of mark and you go like, well, I do have to mark you as to standard or 7 or a 10 or whatever, it's also developmental. So I think that's very important after Delta. That I wouldn't really do something that is purely evaluative as an observation.
Right. And has it happened to you at some point that you find it difficult to create this balance that you're talking about? Or like, I'm guessing you did Delta, and then afterwards, was it challenging for you to put everything you learned from Delta into practice? Or throughout the years, has it been a challenge? Or has it been organic and you learned it and it was so meaningful that you were able to apply it into your overall lessons as teacher trainer?
No, I mean, Delta made me a better teacher and incidentally made me a better trainer. But in terms of applying it, well, it takes some time for you to do it more automatically, for you to apply that reasoning. I need to be aware of A, B, C, D, and this lesson needs to have these elements because you're just fresh from training, and those lesson plans take you forever. I mean, it's really like you spend, I don't know, like many more hours than the hour that you actually teach to do that. So reducing that to making it more automatic, it will take you some time, and it's normal. So it took me probably, I don't know, a year or so to like really go like, okay, these are the elements I need to include for a lesson to be, let's say, Delta level or something like that consistently. Anyway, that's my opinion, of course. I mean, maybe another trainer could just come and observe and say, that's not Delta level. Okay. Fair enough. But just applying them. So I think that you should be very aware that you were pushed very hard in a training course. That's what training courses do. You were pushed to your limits if it's an effective course, and then you kind of wind down, come back to your regular teaching contexts. But you shouldn't go back to your previous practice. Otherwise, it's kind of a waste of time. So while you're winding down, be aware that this takes time to sink in and to be effortlessly incorporated into your everyday lesson planning. In terms of training, it was relatively seamless because right after I finished module 3, then I was ready to be trained for becoming a CELTA trainer. So I had my full Delta, and I had already worked with a couple of them, and I think I saw like all these international trainers that I was lucky enough to work with had kind of like this mark, they are very efficient in the classroom. Their processes are very easy to follow. They are relatively approachable, and so I tried to imitate that and get that from them. Even though everyone was different, I mean, I would just walk in with my notepad and just take notes because everything was really, really good. I was like, oh, he's doing this on the board. She's giving feedback in this way. It was a good experience, and I normally still ask like my colleagues if I could just be a fly on the wall and observe their lessons or their feedback or something to keep learning. I think that's very, very important.
So basically the learning process never stops, right? You keep on learning even though you've got tons of experience and you've got many qualifications. You keep on learning, and I think that's the most valuable thing of all, right?
I think it's probably the truest thing ever. I mean, even if I've been training for over 10 years, I mean, right now I'm just finishing my trainer development module in the master's program. And still, I was like, oh, I know I'm reading about different options to structure my lessons. There was another framework to give feedback that I found useful. But again, what I like about this is that now you have more options. You don't just do one thing. You have like a choice between different options depending on your contexts. So it's like, okay, this is one way to structure lessons. It's quite effective, but there's another one. It's similar to your development as a teacher. When you learn a framework and you go like, okay, I know how to do this lesson, follow these steps, then I know another one, then I know another one, and then I have like a wide variety of frameworks to choose from. It's something similar that happens when you're training.
Yeah.
Probably one more thing that I would give as a recommendation is when you start training, allow yourself to be new again, to be like a new practitioner, because people are like, now I know everything. Well, your training sessions may not work quite as well because you're new. You're effectively training for the first time. So just allow yourself to perhaps become familiarized with one way of training, then another one, so that then you can really become a good teacher trainer with different training options.
I agree completely. And let me ask you the following. Throughout everything that you have done so far, I'm guessing that many of our audience members many of our audience or members from the Mextesol chapter are going to be asking themselves, hey, would you recommend a source? Would you recommend a book? Would you recommend a place where we can enrich ourselves as well? Because as you said at the very beginning of this interview, that sometimes money-wise or because of other reasons, it's very difficult for us to do one of these courses, right? And sometimes one of the best possible ways in order for us to grow is by learning by ourselves. First and foremost, maybe reading a book or I don't know, attending a webinar, something like that. What would you recommend?
I would recommend, like, if you're interested in becoming a teacher trainer, do it little by little. Perhaps in your institution there's like a mentoring scheme, so mentor newer teachers, and mentoring, in a more one-to-one relation. In a mentoring relationship, there's no hierarchical relation in terms of like, I'm the supervisor, I'm the trainer. So start helping teachers, see if you like it, see if you can identify their needs and are able to provide them with useful suggestions. Probably also some sort of community of practice, if you can have that. Well, I call it community of practice, but you can call it like professional learning network or any of these fancy terms that everybody's using, which is basically just get together with colleagues with the aim of developing. So someone else who has been at the institution for relatively longer and who wants to do something different, perhaps you can get together, share your own lessons, and then eventually start delivering one-off training sessions, like these ones that happen at the last Friday of the month or something like that. So maybe that's where you can raise your hand and say, I think I can share this. And this is kind of like bite-sized, training. Like you can try it and see, yeah, I liked it. This is my thing. I worked hard to plan a training session. My colleagues appreciated it. And I think then I might be ready eventually for a full course, for like many sessions together. So I would probably recommend that they do that they get together with other colleagues and start like dipping their toes in this by mentoring or by designing one-off training sessions. And perhaps then they can raise their hands and approach their supervisors or their heads or whatever and just say like, hey, I'm interested in becoming a teacher trainer here in this institution. Is there a program? Should I approach someone else? I've done ABC before and I think I like it. I think this is really what I would like to do in the future. In terms of a book, that you mentioned, and that would be helpful for this one-off sessions. There's this book called Teacher Training Essentials. It's a Cambridge book by Craig Thane. I'll just show you the website if you don't mind.
Please. It's right there. Okay.
Really a Cambridge. This book is part of the copy series. So the advantage here is that once you buy it, you will photocopy the material and it's sort of ready-made. So it explains to you like, this is for this type of teachers, pre-service or in-service teachers whose needs are this, and this. So it has like the session aims and outcomes. And the material is there for you to use, sort of ready-made. Obviously, you're very welcome to adapt it to your training context, but it has approximately approximately, I don't know, 30 something ready-made sessions on a variety of topics. So I think it's very useful if you want to go like, how do I structure a training session, on what can my training sessions be about, etc. I think this book is very, very useful if you would like to get it. It's it's photocopyable basically. So you just take it, you see it, and there are clearly marked pages that say photocopyable, and you can use these materials on the go, really.
All
And I
right,
found it
thank you
very,
very
very
much.
useful. I mean, when I discovered it, it was like, yes, this is the
Yeah,
book.
finally, yes, what I needed. Now, um, in your opinion, what should people who are interested in becoming a teacher trainer do in the short, medium, and then in the long term process? I mean, I think most of us can get, or we can understand many things from what you just shared with your own experience, right? First, becoming a teacher, then becoming a teacher trainer, then doing Delta, and then developing even more. Uh, would you like to add more to that? What would be, I mean, in your opinion, of course, some steps to follow in regards to that here in Mexico?
I would say you should have like a very varied experience, with
Mm.
decide to teach in different contexts, and by that perhaps different ages, as I said, business English, one-on-one lessons, etc. So you do have that experience that will help you, give you face validity in front of the trainees. It's like, I've done it, and this is what I can recommend in case you want to go into business English, or if you want to go one-on-one teaching, especially nowadays. I mean, a lot of people are doing one-on-one online. So it's like, have you done it? What is your recommendation? Because they do ask you, like, where do I ask for a job? How much should I charge? Where should I plan things? How should I do these things? And if you've done it, then you will be able to give them this guidance. So teach in a broad variety of contexts, as many as you possibly can, within reason, of course. I mean, within what is attractive to you, but also perhaps just for the sake of expanding your teaching repertoire, go and try and see what that's like in general. Then secondly, probably the next step would be this, when I suggested like really getting together with some other colleagues, so that you get used to observation and feedback, so that you don't develop on your own, because it might be a very lonely road, like reading books, etc. And
Yes.
not only lonely in terms of like I feel lonely, but when you're reading a book, you process it in your own way. So there's no
Yes.
one there to ask you the challenging questions like, what did the author mean by this? Why is this there? Da, da, da. So notice some other points that you may have missed when reading a book. So nothing wrong with developing by yourself, but you need to make sure that you really are a reflective practitioner, so that you really go like, why am I reading this? What are my benefits, etc., and not just like skim reading it. So that's why I would suggest working with someone else, so that this is more beneficial. Probably then this one-off training sessions, like after reading, putting together a training session with clear outcomes, seeing the results, and then finally becoming a trainer, following some sort of the training scheme that there is in their institution. Having said that, I do recommend that if you find any formal courses that train trainers, there are not many, but there are now some options online, etc., that do go like, okay, this is what it takes to be a trainer in terms of how to transfer your teaching skills to the training classroom. So a lot of them are transferable, some of them are not. Designing input sessions, delivering input sessions. So it's like, okay, your design is really good, but then you need to deliver a successful lesson. And then feedback, like giving effective oral feedback after an observation, giving effective written feedback in for assignments, for observations as well. You complete a format, and by effective I mean that it's useful for the trainee. And then probably some other options in terms of like a full course design. So what is implied in designing a full course? So I mean that's why, like, developing like this makes sense. Even though I designed some courses before, I mean, after doing my Delta 3 and being forced to really do it to a certain standard, then the training courses are better. So I do fully see why you need all those things to be a very effective trainer. So I would recommend going little by little and trying to make an effort to develop. Having said that, the more you develop, the easier it becomes to develop further, because you also expand your own networks, and then your contacts become other trainers themselves. So it's easier to get resources from them as well, and the availability of other courses. So connect with others, basically.
Great. And regarding what you were saying about finding groups, would you say that special interest groups, for example, are a good source for people to find out different things?
Yes, because these special interest groups are really specialized there. So you find anything from ready-made sessions to venting your concerns. I mean, sometimes you just want to say things that are a little bit negative in your context, and you want somebody else to hear and say like, okay, I'm not alone there, and maybe you can work out some solutions or something. So these special interest groups are very useful. You find them easily on most social networks. You just type like teacher training, etc., and you'll find if there's a specialized group in the country, in your area, etc., or again, an invitation to create one. Really, you'll be surprised that people would like to join those communities. No? Internationally, definitely, there are these international groups, and joining them is very useful, very, very useful.
All right. Thank you very much, Andres. Now, we're in our last 5 minutes. Let's just see if anyone from the audience wants to post a question or would like to ask something.
Sure.
Yeah, let's see who wants to ask. Oh, yeah. What's the difference between a TKT training and a Delta or CELTA? That's what Rocio Corona is asking.
TKT in general tends to be more of an exam preparation course, because you need to just select like multiple choice things. So it's more focused on your, let's say, on your
knowledge, right?
On your content knowledge, really, than your practical application. So you will not be tested in a real classroom. There was a TKT practical. There was. It's not there anymore. Cambridge decided to call it off. So and whereas Delta and CELTA are much more practical, like 100% practical. So input sessions should relate totally to what you're going to do in your teaching practice, because that's the core of the assessment. So for both courses, CELTA and Delta, they are much more practical, probably even a little bit less theoretical. It's like what the trainers care is that you are an effective teacher in front of the students. And when you train for TKT, what the person delivering the course should care about is that you get a good result in a written exam.
And then the difference between CELTA and Delta, I think, is the in-depth analysis that you do during the course, right? And
well, yes, I mean, CELTA is designed for pre-service teachers. Even those teachers with some experience are also welcome to join. And in my experience, they have also found it quite beneficial. Delta is really asking you to specialize in the topic you select. So then you go like, I believe my learners need this in writing, and then you read like everything you can. So it's much more in depth about that one, that one topic. So again, listening for this particular feature of listening, but you become like the expert in that, hopefully, in that particular thing. And the aim is that you replicate that level of analysis in all your future lessons. So you teach listening not only about that one, but everything, and that you're aware that you really need to do your research there. Whereas CELTA is more of a general course that, okay, you're prepared to deliver all 4 skills, all systems lessons, and you're basically like an effective teacher for different institutions.
Right. And as you just said before, nowadays there are even more courses, not only CELTA or Delta, which are worldwide renowned, but there are many other universities that are offering courses similar to, or that offer a bit more, maybe, depending on the course, right? So there are many different options nowadays, correct?
There are different options, yes. There are even national options, but I think what you should look for is something that benefits you in your context. So do your research, read about the course in detail, and go like, is this something that would make me a better teacher? Or if I want to become a teacher, then just ensure that you do have some practical components. That's in general what I've learned from my experience. Some trainees I've had have taken even degrees in ELT, but with little to no practical components. So in the classroom, they really don't work. So try to find
something practical, hands-on experience, right?
A course that includes a practical component, like with observed practice, that a trainer observes you and gives you feedback in your practice.
Right. Let's just check if there's any other question. Oh, yes. Is it necessary to get a linguistics degree in order to become a teacher trainer? If don't, which certification do I require?
Interesting. I would say no. Linguistics was just my choice because I had been reading about it, so I decided to study that as a degree. But no, you don't need to get a degree in linguistics. What's common is later on to get a degree in applied linguistics, which is basically teaching. So I mean the applied linguistics, but as a master's or something, if that's really what you're after. If not, and probably I would say no, it's not necessary. Certifications that you require, it depends on where you want to train. So you can be a teacher trainer in your own school, and then therefore they would decide what's necessary to become a teacher trainer in those institutions. In general, I would say try to combine some sort of BA degree in ELT with these other international options. Why do I recommend the international options? Because they are internationally standardized. So they do work to certain standards that are different from the standards that we work here in Mexico. So getting, for example, assessed by someone who's been working in Thailand or in Russia or something, and they assess to the same standards, helps you keep you level and also world competitive.
Right. And also you have the possibility of becoming a globally mobile teacher, right? With international certifications, correct? Because they are valid anywhere around the world. So it's a possibility for you to go to other countries and teach as well there with those certifications, correct?
Again, more than the validity, it's the recognition. Like they know, like if somebody comes with a CELTA from, let's say, India, and somebody from Korea comes with a CELTA, they know that they have very equivalent teaching skills. Therefore, they know that this is the kind of teacher that they want to hire. That's true. We've just sent a certificate to Hong Kong last week, and I was like, okay.
Like, wow.
So that's very true. We've received also like from former graduates like who are working in Australia and the US, etc. It's important if you want that kind of life, if you want to be more mobile, let's say, and work outside of the country of Mexico.
Of course. Let's just see if there's any other question, just in case. I think not. Oh, yes. Sorry, I've had the experience that American teacher trainers are more open and better givers than British trainers. Don't you think?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't had American teacher trainers, so I don't know. My experience with British trainers has been very, very positive, but I would have to be trained by American teacher trainers.
Yeah, I think what matters the most in the end is what you're learning from that person, right? Regardless of where they come from, all the different skills that you're able to gain from their input and their feedback. Right?
I mean, having said, greetings from State of Mexico.
Yeah, thanks to share your experience. Oh,
well, thank you for being here.
And so much learned today. Thanks for sharing with us. Ophelia. Is there any possibility to take the Delta now during that? That's a very good question. During lockdown. Yeah, right?
Yes, there is. Cambridge have just approved that. So yes, just contact your center of preference. Yes.
I think that applies for CELTA, Delta, and any other teacher training course, at least. Yes, right? Okay.
Yes. There's a possibility. It was being discussed, but Cambridge have approved it relatively recently. So yes.
Great.
Yes.
And any other question? Can you tell us a bit more about the Cambridge Train the Trainer courses?
Yes. It's a course designed for you to train on Cambridge courses called CELT P and CELT S. Primary is P and S secondary. And it's offered by different institutions that work with Cambridge. Basically, it's a 30-hour course that will show you all these skills with the aim of you becoming a CELT P or a CELT S trainer. It's very practical, very, very hands-on. Could be intensive, could be extensive. But again, contact your institution where it's offered so that they give you more information. Beneficial to develop as a trainer, yes, because it's structured. I mean, it's one of the few courses that actually gives you input on becoming a trainer rather than just following the expert or working with someone else. This is more structured.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other question? Hello, Andres. This is... Oh, okay.
Jorge. Hello, Jorge. Good to see you here.
Any other? Greetings from Mexico. Okay.
Greetings back, Claudia. Well, thank you, Virginia.
Okay. Any other?
Colombia.
Oh, from Colombia. Nice.
Welcome. Thank you, Ricardo.
Any other? Future English. Thanks, Andres.
Thank you. Yes, I hope this is useful. And well, if training is your calling, just do it little by little. Try it.
All right, Andres. Well, any final statement? Because we unfortunately we would love to keep on talking about this, but we're a bit short on time. So, any final comment?
I don't know. I mean, if you like trading, try it. It's very, very rewarding. It does have its negatives. We didn't really go into that point, but it's personally it's been really rewarding. It's a very, very rewarding experience, which is very different from teaching in that sense. So please try it. Develop little by little. Make sure you really have like a very 360 view of everything you do. So read a lot, collaborate with others, and well, good luck in your training journey if that's what you want to do.
Now, one last thing. If anyone from our audience wants to ask you more questions, is it okay if they contact you?
Sure. I don't know if I can share my email here or something.
There you go. That's it.
Yes. If you have any further questions or comments, definitely you can write to me there. Within office hours, of course.
Yeah. Of course, yes.
But definitely feel free to write an email and ask me any questions. I'll be happy to respond.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Andres. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Please remember that this was the first interview, and this was not the last thing happening today. Please stay with us, because at 10 in the morning, we're going to have our next webinar. It's going to be very exciting. Please stay with us in order for you to appreciate what's going to happen and enjoy it. Okay. Thank you very much, Andres, for your time, for sharing all your experiences. And we'll see you around.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Bye.